Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Energy News Beat. I'm Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group, and we have a monthly chat with Irina Slav. She is one of my most favorite authoresses. I guess, Irina, is that how you say it? Authoress or authoresses?
I really have no idea, and I don't care. I'm fine with the gender neutral author.
Who knows anymore? But today is Friday, and it is 6 o'clock in Dallas time, and it is 2 o'clock in Bulgaria. Is that right?
Yep.
And you are ready for the weekend. I don't know how you did it. I mean, you write on your Substack just about every day, and your husband must just absolutely never sleep as well trying to keep up with you, because I don't know anybody else that is out writing. You're on podcasts. You're a movie star. You have a red carpet in front of your house. I don't know how you do all this stuff. So, what's going on in your world?
Funny news reports. In addition to a garden offensive, we just moved to the country from the city, and I'm going all in on my garden, which hasn't been well maintained for years. So there's a lot of work to do, but I'm still better than the German government, you know. My problems are manageable.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad you got to move to the country. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. The city is too crowded for us now.
Oh, and so how far out of town are you? Are you out in the middle of nowhere, or?
No. We have one of the biggest cities in Bulgaria, just 15 kilometers from us. That's less than 10 miles.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's got everything you need: schools, hospitals, malls.
So you gotta get a little civilization, but I prefer living in the middle of nowhere. Me, I don't like people, so
Yeah, I know what you mean. We are on top of the village. We're one of the last houses, so there aren't a lot of people around.
Right.
So
that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, we have it good.
Oh, that's fun. Now, this week you had cold carbon feet and wind oddity. And for my listeners, I just want to tell everybody, go subscribe to Irina Slav on Substack. And then also follow her on oilprice.com. Both of these had kind of a same theme to them. One of them was the ESG movement and trying to take over like everything. You had 5 years ago, Cliff caused a small ESG investment when he pointed out, he argued the ESG movement will typically return less funds than are free to invest anywhere else. So people were starting to wake up 5 years ago that ESG investing wasn't as good as it should have been. So where did all that start coming out? Because ESG investing started before that. What started happening with the cold feet?
Probably there was this brilliant article I cite in the Substack newsletter by a Bloomberg opinion columnist. Right, so I think what you wrote, good riddance to this ESG investing. It's actually common sense. ESG investing is trying to align moral values, life values,
Right.
environmental values with investment decisions. And that's probably good from a moral standpoint.
Right.
But from a purely financial standpoint, it doesn't really make much sense, because it means investors limiting themselves in their investment decisions. And as far as I can understand, the fewer options you give yourself, the fewer profit opportunities you give yourself, essentially.
In the US, Warren Buffett is a very big investor, and he said, never invest into wind farms unless it's funded also with tax subsidies. So even a big billionaire realized you can't invest in anything without tax and the subsidies on that. So when the little engine number one really stuck, the ESG person on the board, and that drove that whole thing crazy. I think they just pushed it too far, because it seems like now there's a movement with the investors to actually try to find some profit, as opposed to trying to be hypocritical and forcing the ESG thing. Would you say that's a good idea?
But that's because oil and gas prices are through the roof.
Yeah.
And that's because there is not enough oil and gas to go around. So,
right.
Fundamentals beat everything sooner or later. What Buffett said also makes a lot of sense, because obviously, I think it's already obvious that wind and solar cannot stand on their own 2 feet without government support.
Right.
They need government subsidies. Now, someone would say that oil and gas are also receiving government subsidies. But the truth of the matter is, with or without subsidies, the world will continue needing oil and gas, because that's the way economies are wired.
Yep.
It's nobody's fault, really. That's the way our civilization developed. While solar and wind are being sort of imposed on us. So you really need to support them financially if you're a government, for them to make economic sense. And that's a big part of the ESG movement. As I argued in that article, if there was no government support in such with such size, probably the ESG movement would not have taken off so strongly.
Yeah, the government. Now, it seems like the government was trying to do this because society was demanding it, and they'll do anything for a vote. I mean, I have a low opinion of all politicians, so they'll do anything.
I know what you mean.
I think and you were so nice when you got to. One of the things that I really enjoy about your Substack is your sense of humor. You have a very funny sense of humor.
Thank you.
So it is enjoyable. You're not just giving us the facts. You're also going, hey, you have to kind of read some of your jokes. I've had to read a couple. Now that was funny. I had to go back. But when we talked about the win oddity and we're talking about hypocrisy, you wrote this one out this week is too, and July 6th. So we have the investors starting to turn, waking up, going, hey, I need some money because everything else is going down in the market and energy is going up, and I can actually make some money. But all these wind farms, they're supposed to be saving the planet with low cost energy, is changing the planet. I mean,
that's part of a bigger argument that I've been making for years, and is that whatever we do, all human activity has an impact on our environment.
Right.
It's unavoidable because we are the dominant species on this planet. Right. Whether it's good or bad, we do quite a lot of good. We have been doing quite a lot of good lately, preserving ecosystems, fighting for them, trying to save animal habitats. This is commendable in every way. But the problem with so-called renewable energy, which is not renewable because of the metals and minerals it consumes, is that its potential effect on the environment, which may be adverse rather than positive, is being swept under the rug. Nobody's talking about it. The mantra remains low-cost energy, even though it's no longer as low-cost as it was supposed to be because of the shortage of metals. But now this effect on the weather, and if it's big enough, if it's a large scale enough endeavor to build wind and solar everywhere, it will be affecting the climate. This is not being addressed, and this is not how you do an energy transition successfully. You need to talk about not just the good points, but the bad points as well, to mitigate the bad effects, even if they are potential, even if we need more research to confirm. But if you're not encouraging this research, and official agencies are not encouraging this research because it goes against the grain, you're pushing something that might not work, and it might be harmful to that same environment we used to want to save. Now it's all about emissions, of course, but we used to want to save the environment from the worst of our, our activity.
But I didn't think it's like on one of our last talks that you said you brought up a lot of things that I didn't even realize, like hydrogen requires so much water. And so when you require so much water, I was like, didn't even think of that. And then when you take a look at the wind farms and they line them all up on the ocean, they're changing the wind patterns as they come in, and they're even changing, the humidity as it's coming in and the water flows, and it's really changing the environment for all these environmentalists that say that they're really doing good. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. And the more they build, the greater the changes in precipitation patterns and all that.
The EU this past week just announced their accepting of nuclear and natural gas as available for renewable funding. What do you think that means, good or bad?
Well, it's good for energy security. It's a rare moment of sanity for the European Union.
Did you say rare moment of sanity?
I did say rare moment of sanity, yeah. Well, based on their track record from the last, few years, and especially the last few months.
I would say the last 15 years, but we'll leave that.
But they still have to get this gas. And now they don't know where to get it from. So on the one hand, it's good news, of course, because they're opening the door to hydrocarbons and to nuclear energy. Not Germany, though. Germany, I think, is still adamant it's not extending the lives of its nuclear power plants. With gas, the problem is it has to come from somewhere. And if it's not coming from Russia, as they now expect, they expect Russia to shut down Nord Stream 1 and never, open taps again. But essentially...
Did you say they're going to not open Nord Stream 1?
No, that's what the Germans are expecting.
I would agree.
Panicking that the Russians will not turn it back on.
I think they're going to discover a problem. They're going to go, we can't turn it back on.
I don't know, maybe it will be an interesting, couple of weeks. But actually, for me, the bigger question is whether Gazprom will actually reroute some gas from Nord Stream to other pipelines, so gas continues flowing to Germany. Right. If it does, the joke will be on Germany again, because they have been saying the Russians will cut off the gas. But even assuming the worst, that the Russians stop it and don't restart it when it's supposed to be restarted, again, Germany and the rest of the European Union will need to source its gas from somewhere else. Even if Russia restarts Nord Stream 1, the European Union has said it wants to completely divorce itself from Russian gas. Again, it will need other sources. So it's replacing one dependency on another dependency. Right. They can talk about friendly countries all they want, but you and I both know there are no friends when it comes to energy security. You're putting yourself in dependence of another country.
Yes. We're seeing a bunch of stuff, and it's going to be coming to a neighborhood near us in America, and that is the Dutch farmers are being, man, I am so proud of them driving in with their tractors.
So am I. Yeah. Imagine how bad it must be.
That is fabulous when you see all those tractors all lined up and everything else. They're trying to destroy, if I understand it correctly, they're trying to take the farms away from the farmers. Is that
they want them to start using a lot less fertilizer because of emissions. And what really, bewildered me was that they told them they would have to cull close to 30% of their livestock because of emissions. And that's way too much.
I don't get that.
Farmers do have to cull their livestock occasionally when there's an outbreak of some disease in livestock. And I remember there was an outbreak in Bulgaria a few years ago, and the government went after small animal owners, like people who have a couple of goats or a couple of sheep, and they ordered these people to kill their healthy animals because there's an outbreak. They didn't go after the big farming companies, they went after the small people. Yeah, it was really horrible because these animals are not just livestock, they're a source of sustenance for them, and they're like pets as well, and they had to kill them. It was a tragedy. So telling the industry they have to kill off close to a third of their livestock is insane. And there's no disease. Let's remember, it's not about outbreaks or anything. It's because of emissions. Where will you be getting your meat? You will have to import it from somewhere.
And it's about control. It's all about control.
Yeah, but you're putting yourself in the control of other countries, other meat producers.
Right. You and I could solve the world's problems. And
yeah, if only we had the power and the time.
That's why we move out of town. We can't control it. We move out of town.
Yeah.
And so when you take a look at where we're going around the corner, where do you see the oil prices? Because I'm hearing demand destruction is going to take the price down because inflation is going up. And that is such a balancing act. You have the Iran nuclear deal falling through, and then you have Russia selling its oil to everybody. Russia's profits are up immensely.
And that's thanks to European sanctions.
They don't work.
It's ironic. It's really ironic. Europe is hurting a lot more than Russia. I don't know. I try not to forecast oil prices because, as you can see, the situation changes by the day. But we're definitely on the seesaw based on the headlines I'm reading every day. It's one headline says oil is down because of recession fears. Next headline says oil is up because of supply fears. So it's supply fears versus recession fears versus supply fears versus recession fears. And this will continue.
You nailed that. JP Morgan put out $380 oil, and Citigroup then came out and said $80 oil. So you have one saying 380 and one of them saying $80 oil, and it's like
these are both based on several ifs. I'm actually working on a story for Substack for Monday about those ifs, these assumptions. Something would have to happen for these oil prices to materialize. For example, for the 380 per barrel scenario to materialize, the West will need to find a way to implement its oil price cap, and Russia has to respond by, stopping exports, which would be a horrible scenario. Now, for the city scenario to work out, we will need a major demand destruction, which means very bad recession. It's an equally horrible scenario if you think about it.
Wow.
So there's no good news on the horizon right now, especially after the US slapped the latest sanctions on Iran. So I don't see a way forward for their talks at this moment, So Iranian oil is not coming back. Venezuelan oil could come back, but they're not producing very much right now because of sanctions and mismanagement and all that.
It's going to take a bunch of money to bring the Venezuelan oil back. I mean, their fields are in bad shape. I mean, they are not good. And that's what happens. It's kind of like the nuclear fleet in France needs so much maintenance that they're not able to run at full peak. I was reading an article.
Yeah, that's an unexpected tragedy there. Yeah.
They haven't been putting their maintenance back into their nuclear fleet. And so they're really kind of It's kind of an issue there. But I want to ask this one. This one always drives me nuts. In the US, we always have the bid for building a nuclear reactor goes to the lowest bidder. Why do you want to put the lowest bid for a nuclear reactor? Because people are cutting everything out of their bid in order to make a nuclear reactor.
Because that's what you do with all the other tenders for everything. But it really, I think nuclear should be an exception there. Yeah.
Yeah, let's have the best. I don't get that one.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So what's coming around? You got your Substack Monday. That takes about, does it take you 15 minutes to write one?
No, it takes about half an hour, but not including the research. So I don't know how much it takes in total with the research. But the writing itself is easy after I've done all the research.
It takes me about, just like you said, about 30 minutes for my articles, which are nothing like yours. Yours are actually legitimate articles. Mine are, I steal your material, and that was a joke.
No, you're free to steal, please.
But I always put in there, subscribe to your, I'm the biggest advertiser for you.
I know you are. Thank you so much for this. And you're doing it for free, Stu. You should.
I just really enjoy Irina and everything else. So Irina, I really appreciate your time, and say thank you to your husband for letting you at least take some time out of the day to visit with me. And real quick, what are you growing in your garden?
Nothing yet. I have some flowers that I'm taking care of. But this time we're not putting anything in the ground until we plow it and we fertilize it.
Right.
And then we'll see probably some essential foodstuffs, potatoes and green beans, this sort of thing. Well, that can grow everywhere easily because it's a drought-prone region around here. Yep. We don't have a lot of water, so.
Well, I tell you, I sit back and kind of go, I can't grow anything. I am a lousy, I cannot fish, and I grow lousy things. I grow a bunch of tomatoes and I get one. I don't know. So eating flowers is not good in the food crisis.
No, we need potatoes and beans and this sort of thing. Yeah, chickpeas as well.
Well, thank you very much for stopping by the podcast.
Thank you, Stu. Always a pleasure. See you next month.
Oh, absolutely.
Have a great day.
Yeah.